Hey everyone, welcome back. And in this video, let's just go ahead and take a look at some input values. Basically all the common input values you're going to see. And yeah, these are the typical values you're going to use in a form sort of interface, right? So if you have a form and if you just go ahead and start writing these input boxes, input types, you're going to see a lot of different sort of things. So first things first, I'm going to start with input type text because that is like the most common and thing which you're going to use all the time. And you're going to see that it sort of creates this nice little area where you can just enter some text, right? Now this also comes with a lot of autocomplete and all that stuff, and feel free to just go ahead and read about them. There are attributes like min length, max length, all this stuff, but this is more inclined towards form validation, which we'll quickly see in the next video. But let's say if I want to have max length of 3, right? Now, if I try to type, I cannot really type more characters than 3, right? Even if I try to copy this URL and paste it right here, you're going to see it stops me at HTTP. That's sort of like a little validation you can have from HTML5 without actually just jumping into the JavaScript world, right? Then if you just go ahead and see min length is probably going to fail if you try to submit the form, right? So we don't really submit the form yet, but if you try to submit it like on a 2, it's just going to fail. So anyway, we have this. Then I don't know, there are like a million attributes you can play around with, but I'm just not gonna describe all of them because that's probably useless. You're not gonna be using them all the time also. So anyway, this is our text attribute. One interesting one is a placeholder, right? So placeholder sort of is the ghost text which will appear on your input fields. So I'm going to say enter your name here, right? And you can see this is the ghost text, right? It's not really a value. Once I start writing over this, that text disappears. And once I remove this text, that text appears again. So it's pretty cool, right? Just to convey information within your input field. So that's one thing. And one cool thing about this is that it works with passwords as well. So if you have, for example, earlier we used to do like value as enter your name here, and then when you click on it, we'll just remove it using JavaScript. But value differs in the way that it is actually the text which is present by default. Placeholder is not, just like we saw. The next thing, similar to input type text, is input type password. Again, super common to use. But you can see right here, you cannot really type just text. You see, once I copied this text, what it tried to do is it actually just copied only the number bits, right? So you can see that this whole thing is a number. E is also a number. It's basically, representing the power of 10 or something, but I don't know. But you can see that it's sort of like tried to copy only number. And plus it gets these sort of increment and decrement for free from the browser itself. So that there's that, right? So this is one thing. Next one is you have, let's see, input type file, which allows you to actually have, this nice little interface from the browser itself. Now all this stuff depends on browser to browser, right? Some browsers might have a different sort of interface for picking up a file. But this thing just allows you, if you click on this, it will open the file explorer of your system. And this will allow you to pick a file, right? Super old, super common, all the time we have been using as web developers. Next thing you could have is input type email. And again, this is an HTML5 sort of thing. Why? Because let's see. First of all, let me just add input type submit, value submit form, right? And if I enter a required attribute here, that means this is required. Let's say if I try to submit this, you can see that we get an error from the HTML5, that is from the browser itself, that please include an @ in the email address. This value is missing an @. So this is an inbuilt validation from the browser itself, from the HTML5 interface itself. So this is sort of like where you would not want to use text over email, right? Because this is a much better option. Similarly, this brings me to an important point, is that is if you have an invalid sort of attribute, by default it fallbacks to text always. So your text is like the sort of fallback for anything and everything which is invalid. And this also means one thing, that if a particular thing, let's say cutting edge sort of thing, I think color is one, I don't know. Yeah, you can see that color sort of allows you to pick one color, which is a pretty cool thing if you ask me. So this color attribute right here, although is pretty cool, but it might not be supported in all the browsers which you try to browse. So they will fall back to input type text, right? So that's how it works. So anyway, moving on, what we can do next, what we can sort of like discuss is input type search. This is also pretty cool. I like this one. This is a pretty much a input type text, but with a cross button. You see, when you type it, automatically gives you a cross button, which when you click on it, it clears the text. That's basically it, right? You can just go ahead and achieve the same thing with a very small sort of JavaScript and CSS lines, but it's good to have sort of internal features like this also. So there's that. Then you also have input type range, right? And once you do this, you can specify a min and max here, which makes much more sense. Minimum 1, maximum 100, right? And once you do this, it's sort of, you're not really sure of where the value is. You can add a little bit of JavaScript magic here to reflect the value, but I think you can also specify a step function, not really a function, a value, step of 2, right? So this increments and decrements in 2s. So the minimum value that could be is 2 in this case, and maximum, or maybe like not really 2 but 1, and maximum could be 99. Why? Because you start from 1 all the way to 99. If I probably just keep it like 30, you're gonna see how this differs. So you can see now it just increases in chunks of 30, right? It starts with 1, 31, 61, 91. That's it. You cannot really go further. So there's that. Another one is common input type checkbox, right? You might have seen this all the time. Do you agree to sell your data? That's what Google asks you, right? When you sign up your account, you check this nicely and you click on submit. So that's how you create it for your own website as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I can just remember a couple of more. Input type date time, or maybe like it was just date, I don't know. Input type date. Once you do this, yep, you can see it has a nice interface for picking up a date. And this is all provided from the browser itself, right? There's no JavaScript, no plugins at all. But again, it comes with a cost that different browsers will have different interfaces. So if you want consistency, then you might need to go for a JavaScript option. But yeah, this sort of really works without somebody just using JavaScript at all, which is also pretty cool. You also have a date time sort of thing, right? So if you just don't really want date time, date for the person, there used to be a date time, but you can see it is now deprecated. It's actually removed, not even deprecated. So there's this date time local thing, right? Which allows you to pick not only the date, but also the time. So you can select, let's say, I don't know, let's say December 31st, 12 a.m. New Year's time. Hopefully everything would be fine in 2021. Let's assume and let's hope. And there we go. You can have a submit button and that will do the job. So anyway, that's another one in the bag. Another one which I can think of is probably input type button, right? So for example, I don't know, this might be just for fun or playing. I haven't really seen any use of input type button in the wild, but yeah, you could probably use it for loading data or something. But because there's already a button tag, that's why I'm saying. But if you have an input type button just for fun, you can have something like this. It'll just appear like a button, a regular button. You can just mess around with it. It will not submit the form, because submitting the form is the responsibility of input type submit, which you already have, right? So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. I think I have covered a lot of buttons and stuff. You have like one more thing to go. I would just say input type. I'll just go ahead and make sure that all the inputs are block level so that we don't see them in line. So input display block, nice and easy. And now I can just go ahead and add input type radio, also a fun and very common option. And I can say this is a value 1. Well, this value would not really reflect on the page directly because you have to give it a label here, label 1. But this has a fault because, with input type radios, you would often see that you can only select one option, right? So if I'm asking you gender, male or female, so you have to select like this one or this one, right? So this right now it selects both. So we don't really want that to happen. So in order to do that, how HTML works is how it can distinguish between, maybe like not really distinguish, but tell that, hey, these are the part of the same group, is using the name keyword. So you can group them by saying gender, right? And name gender right here, right? So you can now select this, now it does not allow you to select both of them. So there's that. So yeah, that's basically it, I guess. Nothing much into the input fields. You can pretty much create all sorts of forms and inputs and all that stuff just using all these input fields. If you want to learn more, you can always head to MDN and Google stuff. But yeah, that's how much you would need eventually. That's all for this video. I'm gonna see you in the next one.